Hey guys, here are some tips on day hiking in the Grand Canyon. Now, if you want to do a backcountry trip or rim to rim, this is not going to be so helpful. But if you're planning on visiting the park and you just need some basic information on what it's like to hike here and how to kind of plan your hikes out, then this is the video for you. So let's get into it. First off, you can think of the Grand Canyon really as two national parks. There's the South Rim and the North Rim. Now, they're only separated by the canyon itself, which is also called the ditch or the Big Ditch. But to drive from the South Rim to the North Rim is about 4 or 5 hours. You can actually get to Zion National Park in Utah from the North Rim quicker than you can get to the South Rim. So it helps to think of it as two separate parks and plan your visit accordingly. Now, most people who come here for the first time come to the South Rim. It's open all year. The North Rim is closed in the winter because they get a lot of snow. And the South Rim has some good day hiking opportunities and different trails that you can check out here. Now, I recommend staying in Grand Canyon Village in the park if you can. It's hard to book, it's more expensive, but you'll be right in the middle of everything. There's restaurants and you can take shuttle buses to all the hiking trailheads. If you can't do that, you can stay about 10 minutes south in a town called Tusayan, which is sort of a little town built, not built, but it was there and now it's servicing the Grand Canyon, and there's some hotels, there's some food and some basic services. That's a good option as well, and it's definitely less expensive and easier to book than staying in Grand Canyon. If you do stay there, you can take a shuttle bus in, or if you leave early, if you leave before 6, you can usually drive right into the park. But if you are leaving a little bit later, 8, 9 o'clock, there can be lines to get into the park. So plan on that when you're coming in to do your hike. The other thing to know is that if you're staying in Grand Canyon Village, you can actually rent and buy camping gear and hiking gear at the general store, which is also a pretty good supermarket and probably the best souvenir shop here. So if you don't necessarily have hiking gear with you, or you want to maybe rent trekking poles because you don't want to bring them on the plane, you can do that here at the general store in Grand Canyon Village at the marketplace. Now, when you're planning your hike, you need to take into account weather. You might not think about the weather in the Grand Canyon, especially the South Rim, as being changeable. It kind of looks like a desert all the time. There's actually snow, blizzards, thunderstorms here, and it's, I wouldn't say common, but it's normal in the winter to have that be the case. So make sure you check the weather report before you go here. The first time I ever came here was in March, and I was not expecting a blizzard, and there was a blizzard here, and I had to buy some impromptu winter clothes and crampons to actually hike on the trail. The trail was covered in ice. So make sure you check the weather, know what the conditions are. If you come here in the summer, it's obviously hot. The thing to know is that if you're hiking down into the Grand Canyon, it's much warmer, usually 20 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit warmer at the bottom at Phantom Ranch than it is up at the rim. So you can start a hike up at the top and have it be snow, get to the bottom and have it be really warm t-shirt weather, which has happened to me before. So make sure you check the weather. Also, another tip, go to the website for the National Park Service and check on any road closures. If it does snow here or there is inclement weather, they often close different roads and different portions of the park. So make sure you check that out before you go to your hike and aren't able to do it. Now, when you're picking a trail to hike on for a day hike here on the South Rim, there's a few options that the Park Service recommends. There's Bright Angel, there's South Kaibab, there's Grand View Trail and Hermit Trail and the Rim Trail. All great options, different hikes, different flavors. The Rim Trail goes 13 miles or so along the rim on the South Rim, dead flat, beautiful views. The Bright Angel Trail goes all the way to the Colorado River, but they don't recommend going to the Colorado River, either do I. It's a really tough hike, but you can do a 12-mile hike to a beautiful place called Plateau Point and get views of the river. There's a lot of options on Bright Angel, and if you go to HikingGuy.com, I have all of those hikes listed there. One nice thing about Bright Angel is that they have water at different intervals all along there. So you should be carrying a lot of water, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you need to refill, you can do that on Bright Angel. So it's a great trail to start on if you've never done a day hike here. Other trail is South Kaibab, Now, South Kaibab is a trail they use to resupply Phantom Ranch with the mules, and it's well maintained. It's beautiful. It's spectacular. It's harder to get to than Bright Angel. You have to take a bus to the trailhead, but it's great. The views are great. It's a little tougher than Bright Angel, maybe, and there are options to go different intervals and make it anything from a 2-mile to a 6-mile hike as a day hike. So South Kaibab Trail, no water, but beautiful. Grand View Trail is a little bit farther away. It's actually an old mining trail from the 1890s, and it's hard. It might be the hardest sort of day hike that you can do here. The climb is pretty brutal, and it goes to a place called Horseshoe Mesa, where there's an abandoned mine. It's a beautiful hike if you want to get away from the beaten path, but only do it if you're an experienced hiker. It's not a good one if you're just a casual hiker or are starting out. Other trail is the Hermit Trail, and that's on the other side of the Grand Canyon, and you have to take a shuttle bus there most of the year as well. Beautiful trail, not known for its like expansive views, but it's definitely off the beaten path, and you're not going to get a lot of tourists and other hikers there. So those are your hiking options. And again, if you're going to do this, I recommend trying Bright Angel first. It's right in the middle of sort of the main part of Grand Canyon, and there's water, and there's a lot of different options, and the views are great, and it's a good one to start on. If you want to get details on any of these hikes, just go to HikingGuy.com. I have a whole Grand Canyon page, and I have hikes, flat 2-mile easy hikes to 12-mile hikes down into the canyon and back up. Now, when you're planning your hikes out, a couple things to note. I would say it's realistic to do maybe one hike into the canyon and back up in a day. Doing more is pretty tough because the climbs out are tough. And that's what gets a lot of people into trouble. When you start on these trails, you're going downhill. So it's smooth as silk and nice and easy. And you can hike pretty far, and then you have to turn around and come back up. Bright Angel as a gradient of 10%. Go to Grand View, other trails, or Hermit Trail, it's like 20%. It's really, really steep. So make sure you are conscious of the fact that you have to come back up. Make sure you have lots of sort of fuel in your tank, and don't go farther than you think you can. You can roughly plan on going at least twice as slow going back up as you came down. So if it took you let's say a half hour to go a mile down, it'll probably take you an hour to go that mile back up. So you can use that as a rough guide to plan. If you're out of shape, it's going to be slower going back up. So when you're actually prepping for your hike, there's a few things to know about hiking, especially into the Grand Canyon and back out. First off is that you need water. Now, a lot of trails here have no water. You need more than like the little 12-ounce bottle of water. Ideally, you have a hydration backpack, 3 liters of water. And if you want some tips on what gear to get, just go to my hike pages. I have recommendations on what type of hydration backpack to get so that you're going to be okay on these hikes. And even if you're on a hike like Bright Angel, where there's water sources along the way, you can't always count on them. And there's a web page on the National Park site for Grand Canyon where it lists any water closures. There's a pipeline. It actually goes, the water that you're drinking on the South Rim actually comes from the North Rim, from Roaring Springs, a little bit below the North Rim. It gets pumped up to the South Rim and then gets gravity fed back down the Bright Angel. But what happens is that pipeline is kind of fragile, it's older, and sometimes it breaks, sometimes there's leaks. And if you go to this web page on the park site, there are like notices, and it'll say if the water is not working or not. So check that before you go. Just because you see there's water on the map at a location doesn't mean it's actually going to be working. Other thing to know is that you're probably going to want a snack or something for when you're climbing back out. Now, if it's hot out or if you're exerting yourself, sometimes it's hard to eat. Even like a energy bar, it's hard because your stomach is not feeling too great. What you can do is get those energy gels that runners and bikers use. Those are usually a little easier on the stomach, or in a pinch, you can buy a packet of baby food, the ones where you open the top. They're basically pureed fruit. Again, easy on your stomach, easy just to squeeze one of those and have some energy for the climb back up. If you like to hike with trekking poles, they come in handy going up the ascent and also going downhill. Generally, there's not, that's a shuttle bus. Generally, there's not a lot of slippery sections, especially on the South Kaibab and the Bright Angel Trail. But if you're doing something like Grandview or Hermit Trail, you're going to want trekking poles just to get you through some of the trickier parts. Another thing about the trails is Bright Angel and South Kaibab Trail both have mules. On the Bright Angel Trail, you can take a mule ride down to Indian Garden. As a tourist, you just ride the mule down instead of hiking. But they are on the trail. If you do come across mules on the trail is 4 feet wide uniformly. What you're supposed to do is go to the inside of the trail, that's the canyon side, get up against the trail and wait for instructions from the mule handler. They'll basically just have you wait there while the mules go by either way. When you're going back up, and if you are in good shape and you're moving at a decent clip, you can actually catch up to the mule trains going up, and then you're stuck. It's a little bit tougher. They generally don't stop unless there's a lot of people behind the mules, and the mules will be going to the bathroom. So not the funnest thing to do. I recommend getting here early and doing a hike into the rim at sunrise, because you're going to beat the crowd, you're going to beat the mules, and you're going to get the great sunrise views into the canyon. Other thing to know is that when you're hiking, a lot of people are scared of the edge. And for the hikes that I do videos for here, I have 360 videos, and a 360 video is going to let you watch the turn-by-turn directions and pan around the video so you can see what the edge looks like. So make sure you check those videos out. If you're scared of heights, that'll give you a good idea of what to expect. But in general, South Kaibab Trail and Bright Angel are both 4 feet wide uniformly. They're considered corridor trails. They're actively maintained by the Park Service, and there's not really any crazy edges. You can walk on the inside and sort of stay away from any heights issues on those hikes. That said, they do climb up the canyon wall, so if you have an acute fear of heights, it might be rough. Grandview and Hermit Trail are a little bit different. They're older trails. They're more primitive. There are edges, and again, I have 360 videos for those hikes, so you could check it out, but you'll be okay. It's very, very rare that a hiker falls off the edge on a hike. What happens is tourists who come up to the visitor center in Mather Point go to the edge, they get selfies. Those are generally the people who fall off the edge. So you don't really have to worry about that on these hikes. Just be careful, obviously, if you're going downhill, watch your footing. The bigger problem that you're going to have in the summer especially is heat strokes. You're going to make sure that you are drinking a lot of fluids, and that if you're really hot, whenever you find a shady section, you're resting, let the heart rate get back down, cool your body down. If you have enough water, you can dump water on a hat and keep yourself cool. But you want to make sure that you are within your limits at all time when you're hiking here. It's pretty common that I see people saying, "Oh, I'm hiking down to the river and back," and they have one bottle of water and like a backpack that you would wear to elementary school. That's not going to be a fun time, and when you're acting that way, it's a little irresponsible. If there has to be a search and rescue, you're putting other people's lives in danger who are performing that. So be cautious, start small. You'll enjoy the canyon a lot better if it's not a, sweaty death march up the cliff face to finish. So hopefully this was a helpful video in planning your hike. I have a corresponding webpage on HikingGuy.com. I have the link for that in the description under the video. So please go there. I have some links to like the water page and some other tips that I'm not covering here. So please visit that. If you could also give me a thumbs up if you found this useful, that will help other people find the video and hopefully plan hikes for the Grand Canyon successfully. And yeah, have fun. It is a beautiful place to hike, and you will love it. See ya.